Good morning, America. How are you?
It's funny when you're not used to talking a lot. I did a show today already with a guy back east for like an hour, and then your throat starts swelling up, and you're like, God, I'm not used to talking this much.
Oh yeah, me neither. I'm usually not talking this much either.
That's
hours on end every day.
Oh yeah, that's all you do. See, why does this keep going off on me, man?
Hey, I apologize for those watching. We've got a couple of watchers already. That's Adam messing with his microphone. So,
all right, we ready to do this?
Let's go.
Good. I'm getting. This is bothering me. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Roll.
All right. I'm Eric Humes. This is Adam Short. We got a special guest today on Staying in Trouble. My friend and local celebrity, Chad Hermansen.
Local celebrity. You like that, right?
That's a lot. That's a bit much.
I don't know. He broke a lot of hearts in high school. Left a lot of hearts on the college trail. Do you put in your bio former Major League Baseball player? Because I have the patch. If it was me, I would literally carry a patch. Even if I was hired for one day, one game, one pitch, I would carry that badge everywhere. But I would keep it on a little pin right here on my hat. So
right,
maybe we could get one made. That'd be really good.
Yeah, I agree. I would do it. So obviously, you can see I have no shortage of swag. So we swag everything. So.
Yeah, I can see that.
Thanks.
All right, huh? Chad, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right.
Actually, here,
surprise.
Yeah, that was a big surprise.
Surprise.
So, Chad, when did you get drafted?
So I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 1995 draft.
So how in the world did Pittsburgh think that you were good enough to play baseball? You could barely get a flight from Pittsburgh to Vegas.
No, we were talking earlier about the area code games was a big deal back then, and it still is now. As a scout now, where all the best players in the country would show up, and it was just kind of getting started back when I was playing. I think it started in maybe 92 or 93, and so this was the summer of 94. So imagine all the best players in the country going to one spot. It's at Long Beach State, and you're playing against each other. You're having games, and I happened to play really well. If you remember Jimmy Rollins, right? Played for the Phillies forever.
Oh, yeah.
I was the shortstop. He was the second baseman. He was a year younger than me. I had a really good defensive series. I hit the ball well. I was actually named defensive MVP, and that's when it all started for me. That's when all the college coaches just came like crazy. Then every pro scout knows about you because they're all there at that event. So if you do well at that event, that's what set it off for me. And then going into my senior year, starting in the fall and in the winter, now all the scouts start showing up at your house. What I do now, I go visit with the parents, get to know the kid. So yeah, I got all these strangers coming into my house, got agents and advisors coming in. So my senior year was kind of wacko.
That's crazy.
Oh, I bet.
And so we had a very similar story. So we had a guest on, and Ryan and his son Ryan. Ryan just got drafted from the Arizona Diamondbacks last year, and just here they told there's the sweet spots about the story. Mm-hmm. Was the night of where they were, some of the emotions, and we talked about actually a lot of the grind leading up to the draft. How do you go from little league to college to actually getting paid to play a game? And and they told a similar story. I forget where it was. It was back east, and it was also in the it was definitely back east.
Cape Cod League.
Yeah, the Cape Cod League. Yeah. And just the stories that they had from that, who was the first baseman for UNLV?
Jack Wold.
Yeah, Jack Wold was here with us, and he was telling, they both went back and forth about all these stories of, playing in high school and now playing in college, and now his friend Ryan's playing professional. He's on approach to playing professional, and it was a great stories on things that you don't think about, in the Cape Cod League, they stay at people's houses, and it's this for a boy, it's kind of like a fairy tale a little bit, because you're you got this mom away from home that's cooking for you.
Oh yeah.
And making all these special meals, and they're totally involved in the games, and they're making like the lucky dishes on game days. And so you get this. What's really great about you, Chad, is, and what we're excited to hear about is some of those stories like you just talked about. So you personally have lived, you lived from high school all the way to professional, and now you're like into extra innings, right? So you're still getting paid.
That sounds like a good retirement program.
That sounds amazing. Yes.
He's really getting paid to play the game still.
Oh yeah.
And now you're extending it. Like he's getting like, what is it when you get in like the 13th inning of the game? Because that's what I feel like.
I get tired.
Yeah. He's like, and so you started this mental edge coaching, and we've seen that a lot where parents are like, hey, we think we need to, I think a lot of times parents are like, hey, let's sign our kid up for baseball 24/7. They get burnt out when it's more about well-roundedness, being a great athlete, and developing the mental edge. I really like that part of your coaching. So
yeah, I mean, I think what you just brought up brings out a good point, because what I'm seeing, and I scouted Ryan Nelson. He was on our fall teams. We talked about him a little bit.
Oh, I just realized I just brought up a failure. I apologize.
What's that?
Yeah, he swung. That's what he's saying. He swung and missed. So
and that's what's interesting about scouting is, I've been doing this for 8 years now, and I have my territory, right? I got Vegas, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona.
right.
I'm down in Arizona and Phoenix most of the time. There's 30 teams, 30 scouts, only myself and the Brewer scout, my good buddy Jeff Scholes, and he lives in St. George in the Hurricane area. We're the only two that are outside of Phoenix, right? So all 28, the rest of them live in Phoenix. So being in Vegas, I get to help coach the scout team. Ryan was on our team. He was a prospect. He made that area code team that I mentioned earlier. So he was a guy going into his senior year that we were all scouting. So he was a guy, a dude.
Right.
What we call him in the game.
Oh, and you don't call him a prospect or on the leaderboard or something.
But we're quote, he's a dude.
He's a dude. Yeah. He's got the hair.
But
fits the
Ryan had an interesting story because he was a two-way guy. And so he would go pitch, and then he's a really good athlete. So he played shortstop too. And he played shortstop at Oregon. And so we would go watch him pitch, and we noticed, because he's even still a real wiry frame, right?
Yeah.
But he's electric. Arm. He always had a really quick arm. And those are the things that we were looking at. Like, dude, when this guy is 21, 22, and he's closer to 200 pounds, he's going to be throwing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So fast forward 3 years, he's throwing 100 miles an hour. And that's what we expected. But that velocity wasn't quite there yet coming in high school, because he had no brakes. So he would pitch, and then he'd go play shortstop, and he didn't have a lot of recovery time. Mm-hmm. So, and I very vividly remember his dad. I think we were at Desert Oasis, and we were scouting him, and his velocity just wasn't there. It's more like 86, 87. It's just down more, because he would touch like 90 to 93, in high school. And it was just down. It kind of kept going down. And so even his dad's like, kind of gave me like, I don't know, dude. Like, I don't know what's happening. I'm like, I know what's happening. He has no brakes. He's doing that, and he's going to shortstop, throwing missiles from shortstop.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no recovery time. And so that transferred to Oregon, where he did the same exact thing, I believe. Because I don't cover that area, but I knew he was still playing short. And then he finally just became a pitcher.
I think in the last year and a half at Oregon, he actually transitioned out of two-way into just pitching.
Yeah.
And
he's if you ever see him pitch, he's a high energy, a lot of effort. So that fits the reliever mold, that way you can come in for an inning or two and just blow gas, throw a tight slider. That's what he does. So I really wish we would have drafted him, with the Angels. And
we do too. That would have been like
so would his dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's shocking how, being the only guy in Vegas, when I talk to parents, are like, oh, because Angels are close. There's so many Angel fans, and they all want to be Angels. And so, I have an advantage there. But at the end of the day, when the draft happens, I have zero control over who we draft. I put all my paperwork in, my reports, computer work,
And you sit back and watch the show.
and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Um,
That was one of the questions I asked the dad, how much this cost him by buying all brand new Diamondback gear. He every time I would see him on the Little League field or anything, he was dripping in red. And I mean, that was his team.
Mhm.
But yeah, that would have been fun. I could also see Ryan in a closer position with that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Just coming in and just knocking them out, in that kind of
Well, he
spot.
has two pitches. He's got a fastball that's a swing and miss pitch with movement
Mhm.
and can get on barrels and get above the barrel. And then he has a swing and miss slider that, if you can mix those two in, and I believe he has a changeup, he's still throwing that. But if righty on righty, like if you have a wipeout slider, it's hard.
You're done.
It's hard. Yeah.
Well, nice. So in your online videos, what's the kind of mental edge that you're giving these coaches and these parents today?
Yeah. So maybe I could tell the story. Of why
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
doing
yes,
this.
please.
I just thought you had nothing else going on. So you're like,
I'm really
COVID's
bored.
out. I might as well make some videos.
So when you play this game and you play it at a high level, you know how important the mental game is, right? And even you played in high school. I'm not sure what your background is with baseball.
I'm more the manager type.
You're the manager. You're getting against.
They actually, I have a term here in the office because we had a softball team. It's called softball Eric.
Okay.
So this is the jovial, jovial Eric. Softball Eric is not the person you want to see.
Okay.
So softball is like, it's kind of like Godzilla going through the city. And doesn't matter which team you're on, you're going to get swung at. So
I missed that team.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish I would have played on that team.
well, my brother Travis was on the team, and everyone knows the term about softball player. So no, I played Little League, but the baseball structure, I've actually got a bad shoulder.
Yeah. Join the club. So I basically, I knew, like, going through my career, I went through a lot of struggles. I was drafted as a shortstop. I made a ton of throwing errors, so I had the yips essentially from shortstop. I was not in the mindset of, dude, I am not going to be a big league shortstop, and I, in the back of my mind, knew that, and so it was kind of always there, like psychologically. I'm like, dude, I'm an outfielder, like I'm a center fielder. So now that I put all my time and effort to try to get better, and it just wore on me. And then I was 19 years old when I finally said in AA, I need to get away from shortstop. This is not fun for me. The game became not fun. So I asked and said, hey, can you move me to the outfield? And so that's when I was moved to the outfield as a 19-year-old. And the game became fun for me again. Because I battled through, because I was 17 when I was drafted. I was really young, 17, 18, 19, played shortstop. Had a lot of success, but also made a lot of errors. And it was kind of the first time I really failed a lot. So those were obstacles I faced right away. And I'm like, I tried to battle through them for like 2.5 years. And then I was just like, okay.
So when they say so did you feel like you didn't have, because to me, it sounds like a personal struggle. Like,
Yeah.
you're fighting the struggle and you didn't have maybe the resource to go, hey, do you think I'm in the right spot? Do you think, right? And I imagine too, we think about, oh, this is great that you were drafted. You got all this, fanfare. He was like the golden child. His other siblings got pushed by the wayside every Christmas. But I also think about being a teenager and like, hey, now I'm under the gun. I'm under the microscope. And so that's what I'm hearing out of your story is like, you had this mental battle going on saying, you know what, I'm expected to be like, I'm supposed to a performance at like this, you talked about a 21, 22-year-old level almost mentally, but you're 17, 18, 19, and you're trying to figure out, like I remember, when you were in college and the different,
No college.
No college, that's right.
Here we go, business.
No, it's my wife. So, but during that time, I'm like, my heart's like bleeding right now. I'm about to tear up because for a lot of kids, like it sounds like, hey, you're in this boiling pot and you're trying to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's where some of this genesis of the coaching is like,
Yeah.
dude, here are my scars. What can I do to help alleviate?
Yeah, no doubt. It was, so I went through all this stuff, and then I was still always, I always hit. So I hit a ton of home runs in the minor leagues. I got up to the big leagues when I was 21. So there was huge expectations, you know, and when I was drafted, I just played, kind of let that happen. But then as time goes on, you're like, and you start reading things, right? You start getting other people's opinions. You see how people are treating you. And it's like, man, they're expecting a lot out of me here, you know. So there became, and I think I developed over time, this kind of perfectionism, right? We talked about this earlier, where it's like, if I make a mistake, you know, I'm letting everyone down. And to kind of really fast forward this, so I went through that my whole career, even in the big leagues. And in the minor leagues, I played every single game, right? I was in the lineup every day unless I had a scheduled day off or just a break in between. And then I got to the big leagues, where that's a whole different level of, obviously you have to perform, right? You got to perform day in and day out. And Pittsburgh, you know, when you're the top prospect, they had high expectations. And so I'm 21 years old, kind of enamored, like, holy crap, I'm in the big leagues. Like, this is a lot to handle. You kind of feel that weight, right? And then you're like, oh, maybe I need to try harder. You know, maybe I need to do more than what I've done in the past. And so I wore that every single day and kind of put that on myself, essentially.
Yeah.
But going through all of that is, you know, the struggles. Like, you can go to a teammate, but I was really up and down in the big leagues. Like, I was there for like 5 or 6 weeks, and then I got sent down, and then went up for 2 weeks, and then got sent down. So I never developed these really close-knit relationships that some guys have in the big leagues when they're all here.
Right.
And so you just kind of.
Well, what did the coaching staff say? Because obviously, if you're going down, up, you're like in that chaotic cycle right there.
Right.
Is anyone going, hey, Chad, you know, what can we do to keep you at this level, or this is what we need out of you? Is there not a person like that on staff going, you know what, this is what we need out of you, Adam. This is what I need out of you today. Because it sounds like you're kind of on the bus. They punch a ticket. You're on the bus. You're off the bus. That's how it is.
Well, to kind of point out, so I was struggling offensively, hitting under 200, say the first 6 weeks in the big leagues, and you're like, okay, well, you're not hitting, so you need to go down to AAA and figure it out.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, well, I can go down and work on some things physically, but my mind is spinning. Like, I don't know, what do I do, right? And it's the first time I failed, and so I go back down to AAA, and it's embarrassing. You're like, because when you get called up, you're kind of like, yeah, dude, I'm going to be up here for 15 years, bro.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be amazing. And then you realize, you're like, oh, these guys are really good. Like, they know. There might not be hard throwers. I mean, it's crazy the way the game is now, where pitchers back then, maybe they didn't throw as hard as many, but like my first game was against Sterling Hitchcock with the Padres. Just a kind of a soft throwing lefty, maybe touches 91, but could just dot it wherever he wanted the ball. And so if they know their weakness in your swing, they're going to exploit it very quickly. And so that happens, and then you get sent down, and then you have your manager you can talk to, which I was when I played. And again, this is in 1999, 2000. So 20 years ago, you didn't show like weakness.
Oh yeah.
Meaning you had to be tough, you know, and that's still, I think, is true today. But now every major league team has a mental skills coach. So it's been a completely a whole shift in front offices. Finally have realized, like, okay, if baseball is, quote, everyone says it's 90% mental, whether it's that high, you know, maybe we're not sure, maybe it's 60 or 70% mental. Obviously, you have to have the physical ability and skill to go play at that level. But when you add mentally, it's huge. And I had the skill to play 15 years in big leagues. I have no doubt that I was picked there by first round because of a reason. I had these minor league numbers to back up all that. I could do everything physically those guys could do, but I didn't have the mindset and the belief system in myself to go do it. And so that kind of, and I kind of dealt with that my whole big league career. So I was only in the big leagues from the age of 21 to 25. So that was like my window. And then I had a bunch of injuries that happened, and I didn't get back to the big leagues. So when essentially my brain is still developing, right? We're like teenagers and we're young. And I'm like, when I played till I was 30, but I remember spending age, say 26 to 30, kind of starting to kind of figure myself out.
Yeah.
But I'm also a physical mess. You know, I had labrum surgery. I'm doing a lot of DHing because I can barely lift my shoulder. You know, just all these things are happening. Surgeries, broken rib, foot surgery. I can barely walk, things like that. So all these things, physical things are happening that can beat you up mentally as well.
Yeah.
So that happened in my whole career. So fast forward now, up until about last year, now I have kids, right? I have 4 kids, 3 girls and a boy, and my son is 17 this year. He's a junior at Green Valley. But last year, and I'm getting to the point where this is the reason why I started to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Is last year he's 16 years old. He started on varsity as a freshman, which is a pretty cool accomplishment. He goes to the same school, Green Valley, and his sophomore
he's got his dad's name.
Yeah.
He's a junior. You know, his name's Callan, but he's a junior. We don't call him junior or anything like that. We just call him Cal or Callan. But
It's the baseball name.
like he's got all the tools, right? He's 6'3", almost 6'4", like he's 190 pounds. Well, you know, this is now last year he's a little bit smaller, but he's struggling right through his sophomore year, and he's not doing as well as he thinks, you know.
Right.
And I'm scouting. I'm kind of in and out of town. I'm able to watch a game here or there. So I get home, and he's like, "Dad, let's go to the cage. We need to work on some things." I'm like, "Cool, let's go." And he was already like really frustrated and upset with himself because we're probably like 3/4 of the way through the year. And he's probably hitting like 200. Okay. And we go to the cage, and in cage work, I'm just kind of working on tee, working on flips, and he's not having a good session, if you will. Like he's frustrated, he's upset. I'm seeing some things mechanically that we can work on, but I'm also like he's not even in a mindset for me to kind of work on and change something. It's like, so it's kind of a weird situation, but he took some more swings. So it's like a 30-minute session, and then he's like, "Let's just go. Let's just pick up the balls and go." So I'm like, "All right, let's just go." Gets in the car, slams the door, and I kind of look over at him. I'm like, "You all right, dude?" And he just lost it, like emotionally. He just lost it. And I'm like, "Oh crap, here we go."
Yeah.
So like if you're a dad and you have kids, you're like, this is gonna get real quick here. And so he lost it. He got really emotional. He's crying. And he finally calmed down. I'm like, "Dude, just tell me. Just let it out. Like, what are you feeling?" And he's like, "Dad, I go," he's like, "The expectations on like every time I go up to bat, I feel like if I don't hit a double, if I don't hit a homer, if I don't do something magical, then I'm letting my coaches down, my teammates down." And then he goes, "Most important, I feel like I'm letting you down because I'm watching."
That like breaks my heart,
Right?
Honestly, like as a dad,
Yeah.
you know, like we talked about, like even one of the reasons, Chad, why we even started this podcast is moments like that.
Yeah.
We all, I think, as dads, we've all felt like that.
Yeah.
And we love our kids.
So, and it's you're like, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay.
And also, it sounds
I'm
like
I'm
you
coaching
told your
myself.
story, and now I'm hearing this come back in your own kid.
This is my kid, right?
Yeah.
So he's going through the same thing, and I'm like, "Okay, Chad, just stay neutral with this. Like, let him just have it, and let him just talk." You know, so I let him just talk and let him go through it, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, and kind of prior to that, I was already starting to work on some things, and I had all these ideas,
Right.
because I'm like, and then that was kind of because I'd spoken to some other kids that were like private conversations that kind of had the same thing going on, right? Because some kids have a brother who just went through his high school who was a stud, and now younger brother's coming up, and they're like, "Crap, you know, I got to live up to his expectations now," right?
Yeah.
So all these things and perfectionism that are happening, those things are going on. And so I'm like, "All right, dude, well, let's just start working on it. Let's start kind of taking it piece by piece and go through it." And so I created, so what I've done and got to this point is I spent this whole last off season creating an online course. And so I call it Mental Edge Training or Mental Edge Coaching. And what it is I create a video and I pick a topic to go over. So say like perfectionism.
Yeah.
I'll go through and I'll talk about how does this show up for you? And like, I'm just getting it out there. I'm trying to get these kids to open up because they don't really know, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, that's totally what I feel."
Yeah.
So I create a video, I do a video. After that video, they have a quick little 5-question quiz. You know, so on the back end, it lets me know that they've actually watched the video. They take a little quiz. So
Is this only for baseball? Because I know that this could help so many kids, and even maybe
yeah.
even adults
No, I
too.
did that. That was a question I asked earlier.
Yeah.
I would say it's for baseball and softball right now because all the quizzes are very heavily geared toward baseball and
Towards the baseball
experience.
mechanics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might eventually build something where it's more neutral and just I'll probably get to that at some point. But I also wanted to stay kind of with what I know.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah,
Sure.
in my
Yeah.
lane.
The greatest game.
The greatest game.
It's the
Yeah.
greatest.
So they take a quiz. They get a PDF after each video. I ask a question or two, and so it's kind of like it's a journal they can work on and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, asking themselves questions. You know, and then during that whole period, they have access to my email where I can start coaching them one-on-one because I've noticed kids. You know, we can do like group Zoom call settings where kids can ask questions, but also regarding that, kids sometimes aren't willing to open up. They're
Oh,
like,
for sure.
they're like,
Yeah,
I'm
I see
going
that
through
in my
this.
own kid. Like in this whole distance learning, you know, my youngest, they would have Zoom calls. He wouldn't say a word.
Yeah,
And
it's like the classroom setting, right?
Oh,
They're like,
man, they're
I'm
like-
too embarrassed to raise my hand
Yeah.
because this is an embarrassing question. So,
Yeah.
so
well,
that's the whole
especially
idea.
perfectionism because they're like, hey, I don't want to expose to myself,
Yeah.
you know, hey, that I'm actually not perfect or
Yeah.
that I'm vulnerable or that I might make a mistake, especially when everyone else looks up to me, you know, but back in the back of my head, I'm just beating myself over the back of the head. And that's why I asked, is this only for baseball and softball? Because I know there's so many teams working with young adults that I see this happen a lot, especially in our society where we have so many tests, right? You know, I think growing up, I always felt like the only test I only had was really a driver's test, right? That was the big thing. Are you going to pass that driver's test? Because if you have to go to school the next day and say, no, you didn't get your driver's license, you know, when you turned 16 in one day, dude, that was the test. But, you know, for kids that are in sports or even in performance, right? We kid about Tiger Moms and we, you know, there's so many movies about parents who are putting pressure on their kids and they don't realize, I don't want to say you're screwing your kid up, you're not, because I don't think a parent can naturally screw a kid up.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Have you met my children?
But so yeah, I would hope to see maybe in the future extra, you know, Chad of the extra innings.
Yeah.
Maybe expand because I think that maybe whatever you're developing, Chad, might be able to help more people.
Yeah, that's the whole idea because when you really get down to the gist of it, it's your self-image, right? Doing all the reading that I do, your self-image is going to match up with your performance. So like if you are like I told you, I didn't believe I was a shortstop, so that performance kind of manifested itself where like that was the result, right? I already thought that I was not a shortstop or could play. I saw all these Latin shortstops. I'm like, I could play shortstop, but I'm like, these guys are at a whole different level.
Yeah.
You know, like I just felt like.
Do you still feel that way looking back? Do you feel like, you know what, maybe I was on the right page? It was just a rough, or did you see what those coaches saw when they saw you when you were younger?
Yeah, I think too because I played more outfield. I played a little bit of shortstop and you pitch a little bit all that stuff, but I was always I think my talent was in the outfield because I was fast and I could throw really hard.
Yeah.
But my accuracy always sucked. So even as a pitcher in Little League, I would drill kids all the time, like just crushing kids.
That's what Chad's friends always bring up to me. They're like, I've got so many bruises.
So that's right. You know my brother real well.
A little bit. I've seen him on the side of a.
Yeah. So he caught me. He's like, dude, it was awful. You know, any of my first basemen were like, dude, it's like 95 coming over there. I don't know if it's going to skip and hit me in the shin, if he's going to throw it over my head. So I didn't have that tool of accuracy.
Yeah.
Right? So it just played better in the outfield. So I knew that. And so my belief as a shortstop was like, dude, just let these Latin guys play shortstop. You know, let me go play center. And I was just happier there. And we want to play a game in a subconscious mindset, right? Where consciously we can go practice, we can do those things, we can work on these drills. But when you get in that game, you got to just unplug and just play. Let it flow. You got to be in that subconscious mind and just let it happen.
So when you taught your son this stuff, and you had that moment in the car. How long afterwards did he start? Did his batting average go up? Did he start, when he approached the plate, was he a lot more calm? Was he?
Yeah, so this was really toward the end of his sophomore year, so he probably only had a couple games left.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, dude, let's just get to work. And so we had the summer to work on some things.
Mhm.
And getting a kid to change the way he thinks that's a project.
Oh,
right?
for sure.
And it's so they've ingrained these pictures, right, and these images in their mind that they're not good enough. So that's the biggest thing that we go through in the hurdle. And if you get a group of kids in the room, and whether it's high school kids, college kids, young pro minor leaguers, and you ask them what is the biggest hiccup you guys have, it's the belief that they're not good enough.
Man.
Every time.
Yeah.
So,
which is an old man. You're going, if you're not good enough, I wouldn't have brought you up. If you weren't good enough, I wouldn't put you in the lineup. If you weren't good enough, but and I think what you're also hitting on too is like a lot of times I think as parents we can tell our kids, or we should be telling our kids, hey, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
But what I'm really excited to hear about in your coaching though, Chad, and in some of your video casts are, that there's a little bit more to it, right? It's always the nuances, the difference between doing it at a recreational level and doing it at a even minor league and then professional level, right? And so, because helping people, like we've had one of our prior guests, I should say regular guest, as a certified therapist, Josh Silito. And Josh talks a lot about those same things, that people are coming in with the same anxieties, right? Just because you play a sport doesn't make you immune from depression, anxiety, fear, loathing, or any of that, right? We're all human. And so, and I think just now as a society, we're starting to learn, hey, you know what? We need to check this up here before we find someone on the side of the road.
Yeah, no, I think everything starts with the way you think. So that's the big picture of diving into what the kids are thinking, because you can think a certain way, it's going to make you feel a certain way, and then you're going to act a certain way. So, I think confidence is, we try to figure out, well, how do we get confidence? I was like, well, you do confidence. You have to be confident. You just do it.
That carries over.
Yeah.
I talk about all the time as a truism. If it's true here in baseball, if it's true in plumbing, which I talk about all the time, then it's true in sales, which is what
Absolutely.
I do, right? Yeah. And so if it's true there, it's true there, it's true there. I call those a truism. And so, one of the biggest things when I'm trying to coach my sales agents is confidence. And they come in and I'm like, you spent all these hours working on your license, learning the business. I talk to them blue in the face. Everyone knows that, Adam was kidding. Eric, all you do is talk all day. Yeah, I talk all day. And so either A, you're not listening, or B, I'm not coaching you the right way.
Right.
And so, so to hear about the techniques, I think talk a little bit more about that. Like, so you started working on some of the mental edge with him in the summer. How long before you saw some results?
Yeah, so we just kind of, and it wasn't like, hey, dude, you got to do step A, step B. It's really different with him because I'm also still his dad. So I have to kind of find that kind of midway, like, okay, so it's like
you're a guinea pig.
Yeah.
So just own up to it.
So there's kind of that point of like, okay, Dad, like, really, your 8th lesson in 5 days, like, enough is enough. So
yeah.
So you got to kind of space it out. And so I kind of, whether it's through casual conversation, but it's getting kids to start understanding that it's okay to fail, that we're going to learn through failure, and failure just kind of exposes our weaknesses, right? And it's okay. Like, how else are you going to learn other than the failure that you just had? So teaching them about, you're going to run into obstacles. And if you play this game at a high level and you don't think you're going to run into obstacles, you have something coming to you. So just knowing and preparing them, and whether you call that mental toughness, right? Knowing that you're going to run into some crap, and that's life, right? We all run through it, kind of run into it with business. But when all these obstacles and things happen to you, you have to have some type of armor to let them just bounce off you, right? Essentially. Right. So giving them things to work on. One of my favorite things is called start, stop, continue. Maybe you've heard it before, but when you start setting goals for yourself, there's things in your life that are holding you back. So there's something you're doing well, usually. So hopefully that could be a continue, right? But I want to start something that is going to get me on the right track to my goals. And a goal setting session is a whole other session. But I want to start doing something every single day that's hard. So a lot of times that could be physical activity or movement. So I could be like, okay, why don't you do, 3 sets of as many burpees as you can? Burpees, right? Mm-hmm. Burpees suck, right? They're the worst, right? But it's hard.
I'm exhausted with you just saying it.
Like just saying burpees, I'm sweating right now. So that's an example, right? So I'm gonna do burpees 3 days a week, 3 sets. I'm gonna start doing that. Stop. I think stop, you can put something nutritional. Like I'm going to stop drinking soda. I'm drinking 100 ounces of soda already today, and every day because I go get 2 big gulps. I gotta stop. If I'm gonna be an elite athlete, an elite person, I gotta stop drinking and just filling my body with sugar all day long, right?
Well, that's really 82 big gulps. Is technically, if you're talking super big gulp, that's 88 ounces, and I think if you put ice in it, it's closer to like 76. So
are you justifying?
These are semantics. See, that doesn't work. Okay.
I'm drinking water like I was today,
but like on that note,
balance out my 96 ounces.
I'm seeing kids on energy drinks, like bangs, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, dude,
bathe in that.
A bang has 300 milligrams of caffeine. Like you're 16 years old, you do not need 300 milligrams of caffeine. That you want to know why you're up till 3 to 4 a.m. playing video games? Because you drink a bang at 8 p.m. Like, come on, right? So just teaching them, like, getting them in the mindset of, dude, if you want to be successful, like you said, you're getting up at 4 a.m. to do your marathon runs, right? People like learning how to wake up early, taking care of what you need to in the morning, having your own hour, right? The hour of power, Tony Robbins, all this type of stuff. Having that own hour, I like to have 2 hours sometimes, just that kind of peace by yourself, whether you're developing yourself, reading a book,
right?
If you're a religious person, you're reading your scriptures, you're doing something that gets you in a mindset of gratitude, of just kind of doing all these things to get you doing things that you haven't done before. So it kind of flips your whole mindset to start doing those.
So those are your mental exercises that you can do. Because in baseball, when I coached, I would work with my infield and I would fungo them to death.
Yeah.
I would hit ground and scenarios over and over, backhands, attack the ball over and over, like for hours. But for your mental game, for you to step up to that plate when all eyes are upon you, everything is on your shoulders, heavy load that some of these boys carry. Even what are those little exercises? You just said setting goals, putting those hours in there. Is there anything else that you can do on a mental state that are mental exercises throughout the day?
Yeah. So in each video I do, it's not, we're talking 52 videos and they get flipped. So there's one of them is a lesson and kind of like, hey, what are your thoughts? And I want you to write some things down here. And then there's an actual application. So one of the big ones is we call it lights, green light, red light, yellow lights. So when you're in performance, right, you want to be in a green light. A green light means you're just kind of free, like you're flowing, you're not really thinking. You put all that hard work into practice, and then in the game you just do it, right? You just react and go. And then so that's the subconscious, right? You're just doing it. And then when you're in practice, you're consciously getting peppered by coach, right? You're getting all those ground balls, so you kind of know those physical movements you're working on, but you're also trying to somewhat get into that subconscious mind and also practicing getting into flow, right? And doing those things. So green lights are what we always want to be in. Yellow light, you kind of start to realize something's off. I'm starting to think too much. You're more timid, you're more shy, you're not as aggressive. And then you get into a red light where you're starting to spiral out of control, right? You're starting to to be really super aggressive. Maybe you threw a pitch as a pitcher, you get a home run, and that catcher throws the ball back to you. You catch it, you're like, you're effing yourself, doing all these things.
Which what you're really doing is you're shortchanging yourself.
Yeah.
You're taking yourself out of the game.
Yeah.
You're changing the lights.
Yeah. So you're out of control.
Yeah.
So, a big part of it is learning to control the controllables, like, and understanding what is that? What does that look like? Where I can't control what the umpire does. I can control my reaction if I'm a hitter and the umpire makes a horrible call, a strike on the outside corner you thought was a ball, right? You control the reaction to what just happened. So that's an example of like E plus R equals O, event plus response equals outcome. So always knowing whatever event or whatever thing happens to me, what is my response to that? Essentially, how do I think about that, right? And I can think good thoughts, bad thoughts, or what are my thoughts? And typically from that thought, it is going to be some type of result. I'm going to be pissed off, and then I got to step back into the box again, and I'm still thinking about what the umpire did rather than now getting back in the box and worrying about the pitch and focusing, on that pitch and being completely present at that moment.
Absolutely. I was always amazed by a lot of pro players that would get up there and mess up, strike out, do whatever, but then they walk off and sometimes they even have a smile on their face. Like they completely
like this one where you pull in your jersey, put your bat up, get back,
or all the
Nothing
mental
happened.
stuff. You undo your gloves and you do them back up again.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating that, like what you just said, that now the MLB has picked up of how important the mental game of the game is, and how important that is. I tell people all the time that like when we had Josh in there's a stigma that comes with like therapy.
Yeah.
And I said, if you're willing to go to the gym, if you're willing to work on your body, you're willing to work on the physical stuff, therapy and those kind of things are things to work on your mind. You have to work on your mentals. And I think a lot of the skill sets that you just talked about definitely applies in baseball, but it can apply in life.
Oh, 100%.
And in general, and a lot of these high school kids that may not go anywhere else but high school can take those same skill sets and be able to apply them in whatever career field that they choose.
And that's exactly when I thought of creating this course. I'm like this is much bigger than just the mental game. Like this is the mental game in life. So I'm like, so how I describe it, like this is a mental skills course plus a personal development course.
Yeah.
So like you're working on yourself
With a little bit of baseball on
a little
top.
bit of baseball, some jokes here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like we're doing now, like I share stories. People remember stories, right? They can go back and listen to the lesson, but they'll remember that story that I told. Like, yeah, dude, I went through this. Like, this was awful. Like,
Yeah.
This is how I felt. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm going through that right now as a sophomore in high school.
Oh, what's the Astro edition of your skills course?
The
So-
Astros,
Yeah.
the banging on the garbage cans.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
So
Or the whistle.
Well, we can maybe do a course on different strategies on how, I don't know how to bang garbage
Yeah.
cans.
okay, so for parents, coaches, and stuff, how do they get a hold of this information? How do they get this?
So what I've done is, so the website is mentaledge.training.
And I'll put all the links in the bio.
Yeah, and so what I wanted to do is to get people, how does Chad teach? Like, what does this look like? So I put together a free course.
Okay.
So there's a free 4-video course. It's on mentaledge.training. You just log in, you create your own username and password. You watch a video. You can write down notes, but I try to give something where you can apply right away. And then, so it's kind of a free lesson, essentially.
Is it just for the kids to log in, or is it kids and
Parents
parents?
can do their own login as well. The feedback I'm getting,
Or what about even coaches? I would think
Yeah.
maybe even
Yeah.
coaches.
anybody can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a free deal. I go through 4 videos, and then at the end of the 4th video, and the video, these are like 3 days separated. So you watch one, then you can log back in, watch the next one. So it's kind of spread out over almost 2 weeks. Just to get it, because my course is a video a week. So you watch a video, and then the next video is the following week. And so yeah, after the 4th video, I call it a scout's view. So I constantly am asked as a scout, like, dude, what are you guys looking for?
Right.
Because a lot of parents are like, my kid's pretty good, but like, are you guys even looking? What does this look like?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Or isn't it usually like this, Chad? Hey, just stretching right here. Oh, there's a little hundy right here. Are you
Yeah.
sure? Did you notice my kid out there, number 3?
Well, usually it's when you show up, you can recognize the scout, especially when we're standing behind home plate.
Bring a free meal over here for my good friend Chad, who I've known a long time.
Yeah. Parents usually are like, who are you here to see? I'm like, oh, so and so. He's like, all right, well, my kid's playing third base. Like, make sure you take a peek. I'm like, all right, I'll check him out. And so that's just kind of fun. But yeah, so the fourth video I go through, I call it a scout's view. In all 4 videos, it's about 45 minutes of video. So I think it's pretty cool. And then at the end of the 4th video, of course,
Is there anyone else on the video besides Callan's dad? Oh,
it's just me. And so I introduced my actual membership course, which is the 52 video course. So it's a membership.
So they can try it out first before
just kind of get a feel.
Hey, this is what and I think part of that too, I think that's excellent because, going back to even the story with your own son was, hey, you're in and out of town. Hey, Dad, let's go to hit balls. So your son is reaching out to you at that point. You don't know it yet. And so that's a great litmus test to say, hey, you know what? Is this, because even if you give them the greatest coaching in the world, if they don't step into it, there's no execution.
That's the biggest thing that I'm still trying to figure out because these are kids, right? They're high school kids. They have their lives. Do they really want to work on the mental game? It just depends on what level they're at, on how serious they are. But I've also learned, because when I first started this, I started working with some kids that are really good players, and I would give them an assignment to do. And then I felt like I was constantly like, I wasn't bombarding them like, hey, did you complete this? And maybe it was crickets. Maybe it was, I'll get to it. So I'm like, okay.
So they weren't taking it that serious.
They weren't taking it serious, or they just didn't feel like, dude, I'm a stud. Like, I don't need this mental game stuff. I've never felt before.
And so, I mean, Adam, you've talked a lot about that. And I think that's even expanded my mind a little bit. So, a lot of times I'll take these episodes, like what we talk about here, and then I'll go home and talk about it with my wife. And she gives a totally, completely different perspective that I don't have. Like we talk about that confidence as a batter that's probably one of my strengths in my own business is my strength that, I can take this transaction from A to B.
Right.
Like that's what I'm really good at. And no matter what the situation, I'm going to succeed.
Yeah.
And, there's some strikes along the way. Don't talk about those. Pinch it off. Let's go. We're going to get the next one.
Yeah.
And so, but to know that, that you could get in here, get it done, and expand on the mental side of things, I think is like almost an expansion of our social consciousness. Like, hey, what's up here is just as important what's right here. And I think we've seen that. I was kidding about the Astros, which, actually they were mentally cheating, actually.
Yeah.
They were. Yeah. And look how much significance that has on the game, right? It's marred the game right here in our generation, at our time right now. And so, before, and you talk about the 80s and the 90s, right? I almost don't want to agree that, the guys were, pumping roids as much as they were. Because I'm like Mark McGwire.
Right.
That's one of the greatest.
That was my era.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest gingers, right? That's
jeez.
My first hit was against the Cardinals, and he was standing on first base. Like I rounded first base.
Did he look as big in person?
He's enormous. He's not as big now. He's lost.
Yeah, he's lost a lot now.
But he was probably 250 then.
Stout.
6'5", 250. And I remember, and I'm 6'2". Like I'm not a really big guy, but 6'2". And I'm rounding first base. I come back, and my trainer's like, "We want the ball. We want to keep the ball, right, for your first hit."
Right.
And then McGuire's like, "First hit, huh, kid?" I'm like, "Yeah, the first hit." So,
I'm getting in the gym,
Yeah.
Mark. Right now, let's do this.
And I'm looking up at him. I'm like, "God, this guy's enormous," And so,
Wow.
but yeah, no, I played through the steroid era. So I remember going into spring training, just busting my butt for months, maybe gain 10 pounds of muscle, like really getting after it.
Yeah.
And then I'd show up and guys are like 25, 30 pounds heavier. And I'm like, what did you do? Like, oh, I worked really hard this winter. And I was like 20, 21. I was kind of oblivious to it all. And kind of finally figured that out. I'm like, oh, dude, these guys are like, they're doing much more than just.
I need to get down to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're doing some serious.
Oh, they're doing some special hunting of those special deers.
So with this whole quarantine, scouting must have been like done. Not too much going on. So what have you started since not too much to scout?
Yeah, so I came home and we were the COVID-19 started, and we were at the point where like, okay, we literally cannot go outside. Like we're in the home.
Yeah.
I was doing a bunch of video scouting for my job and kind of got that complete. But I was also like,
That's crazy because a lot of people do that all the time on YouTube and don't get paid for it.
but I was
mixtape.
yeah. So I'm like writing reports, getting all my work for my team done, and I was like, man, I should just start. I want to talk to players about the mental game, and so I have contacts and I'm like, I'm just going to start a YouTube channel. So I started interviewing players that I played with, managers, coaches, scouts. You know, I'm maybe 5-6 weeks into this thing.
Nice.
I've done like 25, but I'm posting about one a week.
Okay.
And that's at Mental Edge Training Coach is the YouTube channel. But yeah, just talking about my first one was with Jack Wilson, who was our shortstop with the Pirates. He had up and down, you know, in the big leagues too, you know, and just kind of diving deep into like, dude, what was that like? Like, what were you thinking? What did that feel like? Because I think that's what people want to hear. Like, what's the real stuff?
The real
behind
stories.
it?
Yeah.
Because you know, when I got sent down, I'm 21 years old. I put on a happy face. Like, yeah, I'll be fine. But like, I was a wreck. You know, I was like, I just failed. You know, this feels horrible. But then you pick yourself back up, of course. Right? Like, okay, I got to get to work. I got to start working on these things to make myself better. So you figure it out and you start to do those things. And but yeah, you know, it would have been nice to have somebody to talk to, like all the big league teams now, you know. And I think that's the thing is, when I've talked to one of my best friends is a mental skills coach with the Braves. He's like, one of the biggest hurdles is as a kid, right? You think, well, when you think, oh, I'm going to go talk to this guy, he's going to work on my mental game. So from a kid standpoint, they're like, well, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah, I'm perfect to begin with.
I'm good, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you probably are good, right? And that's so that, like, well, I'm not here to fix something. It's more of a performance. Like when things start to go wrong, and you are 0 for 10 and 0 for 20, now what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You're like, oh crap, this feels awful.
Well, do they approach it? I could even see though, like, you know, we talk about you being a star in your high school years, right? When you're in high school and in the peer group that you're in, and you're like, hey, I'm way above that peer group, it's hard to see that, oh, you know what, compared to, like you said, I think you said it earlier, you're like, wow, these guys, even in the minor league, are professionals. These guys in the minor league actually know what they're doing. This isn't Bush League. This isn't like, you know, these aren't the junior varsity kids that just didn't make it to the varsity team. No, they're in some level of progression as well. And I think you talked about that. And so I think that's what kids in general, like, you know, my nephew just graduated, his daughter just graduated. And so, you know, like, hey, what are you going to do in life? And so they're like in the ups and downs, right? Yeah. Do I get a career? Do I not get a career? Are there even careers for me to have right now, right? Yeah. These are 9/11 babies who, you know, since the day they were born, they've seen a lot of adversity. And so I think that's what's really promising about your coaching, or even identifying, even for parents, right? Hey, it's okay for our kids to fail. It's okay and there's ways to even get better, right? So often we're supposed to be that straight A student, right? Oh, you weren't the valedictorian? Oh, you didn't get like 4.85? You're like, I thought 4 was perfect.
Right.
Right? Oh no, she got 4.72.
Right. Yeah.
How do you get 0.72? Like, I still don't understand that math. And so, but there is times in life where someone might be getting 4.72, but it's okay. If you're getting 3.2, that you're giving your best, that's great, right? I think you talked about that too. Like, hey, you know what? I'm struggling as a shortstop. Where my happy place is center field. And I think that's a huge life lesson that you learned early on. A lot of times right now we use the term stay in your lane, stay in your lane. And so part of that too is, you know what? We all have lanes to be in. The sooner you grow into your own skin, the happier you're gonna feel.
Yeah, but that's all self-image, right?
Yeah.
That's all building your self-confidence and doing the things you know you're going to be successful and you actually want to do it. You know, where I'm a shortstop. Okay, but am I really? You know, so
Yeah.
I had those belief blocks.
Yeah.
And until I got to a place where I knew I would succeed. But that's a whole other side of it too. Like those obstacles, right? Working through those obstacles.
Yeah.
And then you gave it enough time. And like, okay, maybe they're knowing and kind of having that personal awareness that maybe it is time to shift, to
Yeah.
do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a wonderful thing what you're doing, that mental edge coaching. And then plus with your YouTube with the stories, man, that's quite a combo right there. I really like that. You get your lessons, you get your instructions, and then you get a little entertainment with the stories from these professional players that kind of went through the same thing. It always feels better when you don't feel alone. And I guarantee,
Yes,
I mean, you can argue with me, but I bet there's been times you step up to that plate in a professional stadium, thousands of people, and you probably feel alone. You feel like no one understands what's going on.
Yeah.
And to be able to hear that you're not alone, I think is therapy by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear their stories, and I
Yeah.
can get through this.
Yeah. Well, there's, and if you've ever coached somebody, whether it's your kid, right, or you've coached someone through something, and then they kind of circle back around like, man, what you told me, like I actually went and worked on it and applied it. Like I can't tell you how much that helped or changed me. And now I'm on a different path. And that's the whole reward of it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when that starts to happen, that of course makes me or you feel good. You know, like, dude, this is it. Like
Yeah,
this is I might have a career, but now you're talking about a passion of something, of helping kids and helping them build their self-esteem and their self-image. That's a whole different ballgame.
And so I think too, is Chad, that's like one of the Maslow's hierarchies, right?
Yeah.
Is, you know, I'm excited to hear where this path goes, like how much bigger it gets, because, you know, when we're all like young and we're in elementary school and we're like, oh, I'm going to change the world, right? And we don't know what that really means. In someone's world, you have changed the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, we experience this, all three of us have been coaches, and that is why we coach, right? That's why you put in the extra innings, and you know, most of us don't get paid for our time. We get paid in that little act, you know, that actualization that, hey, we helped someone else out today.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
Absolutely. Chad, this has been awesome. We appreciate the information you've given us. I'm going to put all the links in the bio. So guys, go down into our bio if you're listening on iTunes, and you can click the links, try his videos out, check it out, check out his YouTube. And if you're that parent, you're that coach, or you're the kid that's maybe struggling and you're listening to this, you like the stories, check his videos out. And it sounds like it'll be a game changer, an absolute game changer. So we appreciate you coming in, Chad, telling your stories. And
Yeah, this has been great. It's always fun to chat.
oh, it's definitely awesome. So we appreciate your time, and we are grateful for everyone who's tuning into the podcast. We are grateful for your support, and please tell someone about the podcast. Social media can only go so far. The best thing about getting the word out on this show is telling a friend and let them know about it. We're on iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and check out our YouTube channel. And please tune in. We get these awesome guests like Chad in, and we're able to bring this wonderful content to you. So thanks for listening.
Awesome.
Right on, man.
Nice.